This 8th episode of Star Trek Starfleet Academy was possibly the most painful one yet. It was very difficult to not tune out, actually. For the second episode in a row, there's no real story here. Nothing to keep you engaged or invested, except characters talking endlessly about their feelings and sort of navel-gazing about their own traumas and hang-ups. This week, you have to put up with the smug, self-satisfied look of Star Trek Discovery's Sylvia Tilly. Her first line of dialogue is, "Oh, you're all still asleep. Wakey, wakey, you Ractigino and Bakey." So that was a thing. I'm not making that up. That's an actual line of dialogue. She's going to talk to the cadets about theatre. So they're going to study some theatre as a means of helping them overcome their recent trauma, because they're still going on about what happened on the starship Miyazaki from 2 episodes ago. We're still going on about that. In this episode, Sam, the hologram, her program seems to be malfunctioning. Amazing dialogue this week comes from Sylvia Tilly. She gives us this clangor: "We are the women time forgot. Optimism is me frickin' paddling my canoe." I think that's about as good as the origami chicken line that Paul Giamatti had in the first episode. Captain Ake tells Sam, "You're not a machine, Sam." Well, no, she's not a robot, but she is machine engineered and an entirely artificial life form. So, not a million miles away. And the doctor does say her processors have been overloading for weeks. Well, the last time I checked, processors exist inside of computational machines. But anyway, here's this character who's glitching, basically in danger of dying, and I don't care. This is a main character on the show, because the writers never made me care. In fact, the only thing I feel for these characters is either a bit of contempt or total apathy. Also, why does she have a bed? Why does Sam, a hologram, have a bed? Even the doctor doesn't have a bed. And then we have this long, protracted, and immensely seat-shiftingly boring scene where the characters dissect a play and the character motivations of the play, which are supposed to mirror their own personal issues, and in particular, Caleb and Tarima's relationship. Is her name Tarima or Tamira? I'm talking about the Betazoid chick, so I'm getting closer to remembering her name. I think it's Tarima. I'll probably get it wrong again. She's being cold and distant with Caleb for reasons that no one cares about, because their relationship feels unearned, requires unnecessary drama, it seems, and they have no chemistry, and neither of them as individuals are even relatable. Meantime, Ake and the doctor and Sam are on a shuttlecraft, and they're going to Sam's homeworld, Cask, to get her help from her makers. Apparently, the planet exists out of phase with our space-time. So every 3 days on Earth is 5 years on Cask. Now, in a rare instance of continuity callback, the doctor says that he once spent a lifetime on such a world, which is a reference to the Star Trek Voyager episode Blink of an Eye, which was the planet where time moved way faster than the rest of the universe. Now, he calls the planet Gotana, although, strictly speaking, the planet was never named in that Voyager episode. However, there is some background lore, I believe from the Star Trek Encyclopedia, that the planet was named after Daniel Day Kim's character in that episode, Gotana Retz. But anyway, there's a very uncomfortable scene where Sam talks about how she would have wanted the doctor to be her mentor, and he never wanted that role. Now, this could have been a really strong scene, actually, and it should have been, but instead it falls flat and just feels uncomfortable and lacks any emotional impact. She rambles on saying, "I want to fall on my butt and die of humiliation, and my best friend to make me feel better. I want to change my mind 6 times before ordering, and I don't even eat. And I want to be a rebel like Caleb, like the Chancellor. I want to fall in love." I'm sorry, but this woman's acting is dreadful. Her delivery is so overdone and unconvincing, with emphasis sometimes placed on the wrong words, in my view. It's hard to watch. Then later, Tarima, whatever, and Caleb have a scene and she gets unconvincingly drunk and makes a toast to her new neural inhibitor on her neck, and she scolds him for not contacting her sooner when she was gone. And he says to her, look, I know what it's like to be here and not want to be. He's referring to Starfleet Academy. He says, but over time, you sort of give into it. And then it's like, and she replies, like the warm release of hypothermia. This is actual dialogue that a person wrote. She should have said, it's like the warm release of explosive diarrhea. Would have been more accurate. Now, he replies to her, and this is even worse. Yeah, exactly. It's like a blockade of excitotoxic mechanisms and cerebral blood flow. You fight it till what's left of your brain dilates as blood vessels, and then the next thing you know, your bed is made so warm and tight, you'd survive the vacuum of space. What was that gibberish meant to mean? This is actual dialogue on Star Trek here. What utter drivel am I listening to? This was the best that the writers could do. I mean, they're trying to sound super clever and sciencey, right, in their speech, but it's not endearing, relatable, or poetic or romantic in any way, right? It's just garbage, just nonsense. And why am I supposed to care about any of this? And speaking of vacuums, like the vacuum of space, every character on this show is a charisma vacuum, really. None of their storylines or challenges interest me. I could care less what happens to any of them. That's not a good thing after 8 episodes of a show. And also, nothing has happened so far in this episode. Not to sound like a broken record, but just nothing is happening. And I'm not even remotely invested in what passes for a plot thus far. So inevitably, they have an argument over nothing. Right? Just comes out of nowhere. And then she returns to her quarters, spews more emotional diarrhea to Genesis about how she wishes she could go back to being the person she was when she was in the War College. In other words, she wishes she could go back to being who she was like 2 episodes ago. Yeah, because she's changed so much since then, right? I mean, I can't see any difference in her at all, but she keeps telling us how she's changed and how everything has changed. And you know, in fiction writing, you should always tell and not show, right? So the Doctor, Ake, and Sam reach the Makers on Cask, and they start running tests on Sam. And then we have this super melodramatic scene back on Starfleet Academy where the characters talk about the play again. And I know it's shocking to believe that it could ever be boring and dull listening to characters sitting around talking about the themes of a play for ages, but here we are. Minutes are ticking by. Not fast enough, but they're passing, and I'm regularly having to pause the episode and go outside to play with my dog in the yard, which is far more enjoyable and productive, to be quite honest. Anyway, I don't understand Tarima's story arc. Tamira? She used her telepathic superpowers to blow some bad guys' heads off in a previous episode, and for some reason, she's not allowed to go back to the War College. It's not really explained why. And she keeps talking about how everyone is treating her like in a weird way, and how everyone looks at her strange, and how everything has changed. But we see no evidence of this. How is anything actually materially different? What's changed specifically? This is, needless, tiresome, emotional melodrama serving as a replacement for actual meaning, depth, and story. It's the most shallow form of writing I can think of, where content is replaced with just, feels, right? The entire episode consists of 2 plots. A plot, Tarima is upset, acting weird around Caleb, and claims that her life has radically changed since she's been away, despite presenting zero evidence of this. Plot B, Sam is malfunctioning because her program is traumatized. Yeah, the entire episode kind of plays like a therapy session rather than an episode of science fiction television. The Doctor explains to a sleeping Sam why he chose not to be her mentor. He explains the events of another Voyager episode, Real Life, another nice callback actually, where he had a family on the holodeck and his daughter died, and he didn't want to potentially risk feeling that again, right? That loss and that grief. So he explains that this is the reason he pushed Sam away, and he breaks down over this. Incidentally, I knew I recognized the Maker's voice in this episode. It's Chiwetel Ejiofor. So as I say, Sam is also traumatized because her program lacks the ability to process trauma. Yeah, this episode is an hour of people being sad about their feelings without an actual story to tell. So the Doctor says that he will be her parent and he will raise her on Cask. So she's going to get reset so that she can experience a childhood from the beginning. So in a mere few weeks on Earth, years will pass on Cask. So Sam will now be programmed to have the childhood that she never had, which can help her process her trauma. Riveting stuff. We see the Doctor raise Sam over the years, and she grows up, and then she goes back to Starfleet Academy fully grown, and the episode ends on a captain's log. The only bit of praise I will give this episode is that at least the Doctor's Voyager backstory was actually put to some good use, at least in terms of his personal story arc, and credit to Robert Picardo, he did put in a very good performance in this one. Besides that, it's just another appalling hour of television. This video actually took me longer to make than the previous review videos that I've done for this season of Starfleet Academy because I couldn't sit and watch the whole thing in one go. I ended up pausing it and doing other things and coming back to it. It just takes a lot of endurance and concentration to sit for an entire hour to watch an episode like this without switching off from total boredom. So far, we've had basically what I would call 8 episodes of filler television. Those are my thoughts on the 8th episode of Star Trek Starfleet Academy. The good news is there's only 2 more to go and season 1 is done. Thanks very much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button and share the video out there. Take care and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.